This is Football at 4.
And Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. It's brought to you by Bet365. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Well, this time of the year, nothing's ordinary. We know Football at 4 always has you plugged into all the things that are going on around the Eagles. And, of course, there are plenty. We'll bring Andrew DiCecco in from InsideTheBirds.com. And, of course, he joins us here on the Sports Bash Football at 4 Thursday edition. What's going on, Andrew?
Hey, Mike, how are you?
I'm always good, man. It's always good to talk to you. We're getting closer to the draft. I know that is a good day for you. You know, opening day of the baseball season on Thursday the 28th. That will bring us to about a month away from the actual draft here. So I know you are trying to heat up with that. You've got a lot of stuff right now at InsideTheBirds.com. Your mock draft is up. We'll get into that in a minute. But I do want to get your thoughts on Avonte Maddox getting cut yesterday. It was official today. The Eagles just tweeted it out that they have, in fact, released Maddox. So any in-house thoughts, options, or is that something they have to address either in free agency or the draft?
Yeah, that was a move that I saw coming. There was no way they're going to bring Avonte Maddox back at that at that salary. Now, all that being said, this is an impactful player who's played in some meaningful games for this team. One of the best nickel corners when healthy, and I say that because Avonte Maddox has missed 35 of a possible 99 games in his career. So he hasn't been overly reliable, and they've had to, in recent years, find different ways to circumvent his availability, and they've had to plug in guys like Mario Goodrich, had to sign a Bradley Roby, Eli Ricks was playing out of position there. So there isn't any current in-house options. I know Isaiah Rodgers is a player that I've gotten a lot of questions about. I've gotten a lot of tweets about, but he hasn't really played slot. He can do it, but he's largely been an outside corner when he's with Indianapolis, and to sort of bank on him being the sort of heir apparent in the slot is I don't know that you could. I mean, that's awfully ambitious. I don't know that you can do that. If anything you get out of him is a bonus, you need to either target that position in the draft, which is the most likely course of action, or you look at maybe a low-cost option in free agency like a Kenny Moore or someone of that mold. Yeah,
you mentioned a lot of people talk about Rodgers. He's the guy they picked up from the Colts who was in that gambling situation. He was doing some betting, I think, on the premises of the Colts practice facility. And then you got that plethora of guys. It just, a bunch of them in there. Let's talk about that group of guys for a little bit. Are all of those guys, the Eli Ricks, the Josh Jobs, man, there's, so many. How many different guys did they have play on the outside? None of those guys, are you saying, project as inside slot guys moving forward?
Well, Mario Goodrich is a nickel guy. He can play some safety. He can play outside. Outside is where he's primarily played at Clemson. Eli Ricks is he's a primary outside corner who was asked to kick inside due to his football acumen. He really took to what Sean Desai was demanding early on, and that speaks to his football IQ, and that's why he was asked to sort of take on a new responsibility, but that's not really what his career projects as. So when you look at it, they don't really have a ton of options there, which means you're going to have to go outside and get a young corner that can be look, nickel corner is arguably the toughest position to play on the defensive side of the ball. And it's essentially a starter in today's NFL. So I think you need to target one in the draft that you can sort of grow and develop with. And to me, there's a couple good options in the draft. One of them who I mentioned in my mock draft, the other one being Max Melton from Rutgers, who had a tremendous NFL combine and super athletic, can play inside or outside. And the Eagles would have to target him on day 2 if they wanted somebody like a Max Melton.
All right, so that spot is going to be interesting. Let me get your thoughts on the safety position, and I asked this question, Andrew, because of the plethora of safeties that have become available over the last 48 hours due to teams releasing them. Have any of these safeties that have recently been cut by their teams, any of them stand out as that guy makes a lot of sense and that Howie Roseman should go get him? Because you would assume this team's probably going to need to get 2 new safeties in here.
Oh, absolutely. But looking at some of the names, Justin Simmons would make the most sense, but these are all guys who are 30-plus, and by all accounts, the Eagles are going to look to get younger, looking for someone in the mid-20 to late-20 range, someone that they can really use as a building block and work with and know that they're going to be here as a piece for the future. maybe you want to get somebody like a veteran in and also sign a young player as well. So maybe an Eddie Jackson or a Justin Simmons, who I think would be the better option to sort of help implement Vic Fangio's scheme to some of the younger players and help sort of just get everybody on the same page. That might make some sense, but this is a really deep free agent safety group, and there's a lot to like there. It all depends on what the Eagles are looking to accomplish. And to me, I think they're looking for a younger safety, and who knows, they need two, like you said. So you might want to get a veteran in there that can sort of help with responsibilities and get guys lined up and facilitate what Vic Fangio wants to do.
Yeah, let's, obviously Simmons is an interesting one. Him and Jackson both played for Fangio. They're both 30. Simmons made the Pro Bowl. He's been a perennial Pro Bowl. He's been an all-pro second-team player. But that 30-year-old, what is your take on those guys who are at that age that you start to wonder?
Well, I think Kevin Byard might be the best example of someone who, and James Bradbury for that matter, looking at corner, sometimes guys just hit a wall and they almost fall off a cliff once you reach a certain age. There are certain demands of that position that maybe you're a little bit limited as you get older, and your range sort of diminishes a little bit there. But Vic Fangio demands a lot from his safety, so you have to be able to do a number of different things. So when you're looking at someone like an Eddie Jackson, right, I think Eddie Jackson has sort of tailed off, and I'm not sure exactly how much he has left. His play has drastically dropped off in recent years, and then you also worry about health. But Justin Simmons can still play, but you also wonder, are there going to be limitations dependent on what Vic is going to ask of his safeties and when the other shoe is going to drop, because that's not too far down the line here. So I think that you need to really look to get a couple of experienced players. That doesn't mean that you have to get a 30-plus player. There's a lot of guys there. You know, you look at Cam Curl, just turned 25 years old. There's Geno Stone. There's a guy who I really like that isn't really being talked about much in the free agent crop, in Jordan Fuller, who's 26 years old. It depends on what you're looking for and what you like, but I think that would be the route to go for the Eagles.
Yeah, and I know that a lot of people look at Blankenship and kind of see him more as that third kind of safety, right? I mean, is that where you are right now? Is probably looking to replace both. I say bringing in two, but replacing both as starters.
Yeah, I sort of viewed Reed Blankenship as that going into the season, as more of a three safety, someone who's going to have a role, certainly in sub packages and be an impact player, but not somebody that you can depend on to be a long-term starter. And he also is someone who struggled with injuries in his brief career, but he's very limited, and I thought that was very apparent halfway through the season when he looked like he was wearing down, that he was better suited to be a role player, a complementary player on the back end. And Sidney Brown has the potential to be a starter, but he's coming off an ACL, so you really only have two safeties, one of which is not even healthy at this point. So you need at least two or even three safeties, because let's not forget Justin Evans is also a free agent. He's not coming back, but that's another guy who was in the mix on that depth chart. So they're really light at that position, and it's arguably their top priority, just given how important it is to Vic Fangio's defense.
All right, Andrew DiCecco, let's take a look at some of the names that have been a little connected. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, he was here, obviously. They offered him a contract. He didn't like it. He left. He went to Detroit, got a pec tear, missed most of the year, came back, played about 4 games in the regular season. I think he played both playoff games. There have been multiple rumors kind of connecting him. Jeremy Fowler put something out over the weekend that's something, a reunion there. What about Chauncey Gardner-Johnson? Would he seems like a fit. He had a pretty good season with John Gannon. But would he be a guy that you like to see back here, or do you like the other options out there better?
Well, I certainly think they'd be able to get him as a value signing. He spent most of last season injured. But what's really interesting is, for all the playmaking ability that he provides and the swagger, which the Eagles sorely need on that back end, he's going to, by all accounts, be on his 4th team in as many seasons. So you have to wonder why. He's sort of a freelancer, so that's something to be mindful of when you're looking at him in terms of bringing him back on board with a defensive coordinator who is a very no-nonsense, holds guys accountable. He's a little bit of an authoritarian, and when you're looking at some of the things coming out of Miami, a lot of players weren't overly infatuated or overly enthused playing under Vic Fangio. So someone like CJ, who is he marches to the beat of his own drum, you have to wonder if the fit would make sense there, or if you'd be better equipped going out and getting a couple of other guys who are better suited for the Eagles at this point in time.
Yeah, that one's interesting because he did have a good year. I mean, he led the league in interceptions in only 12 games. So he was a guy who, made some plays for this team, but we'll see if Howie Roseman wants to go back down that road. Let's get your thoughts on the Saquon Barkley stuff. I mean, does this have any merit to you, or is this more, hey, they have money and let's just connect the dots because Philly's always involved?
Every player that plays a position of need for the Eagles, everyone wants them, or everyone's like, that would be a good fit for the Eagles. Saquon Barkley would be a good fit for any team, but you have to look at logically from the Eagles' perspective. They have been willing to spend at the running back position, but it's mostly homegrown talent. You look at Brian Westbrook, look at LaShawn McCoy. The outside additions have mostly been via draft day trade, or they're going for the Boston Scots, or a fourth rounder in the Kenny Gainwell, or the bargain basement signing in Rashad Penny, which didn't pan out. Saquon Barkley, I don't know if they'd be willing to invest in a running back who has an injury history, and it's just not a position of value in the NFL. I just don't view that as a viable solution or something that I give much credence to. But that's not to say they're not going to address it. I think that there are some mid-tier free agents, such as Zach Moss, J.K. Dobbins, Alexander Madison. Those are guys who you can get that are going to provide a punch up the middle, and then maybe you draft somebody. But I think you need whoever you draft needs to be a pass-catching running back, because history shows that Kellen Moore will find a way to accentuate that and incorporate that. Look at Tony Power, look at Austin Eckler, the different players that he's worked with in his career that have that skill set. I think the Eagles need to make sure that they have somebody like that in the running back room, but they also need that between the tackles hammer. So I think you'd be able to get that in free agency.
Yeah, to me, the free agency for running backs is going to be very interesting. What's the story in your mind for DeAndre Swift? Is he back? Is he gone? Obviously, a lot of this is cost, but is that a guy the Eagles would say, no, we want him back and would rather have him back than go get one of these free agent names?
Well, DeAndre Swift was misutilized here, underutilized here as well, but he doesn't have the physical element, and they had a lot of finesse running backs in Philadelphia last season that when you need those crucial short yardage plays, you need to rely on your quarterback and the tush push to be able to convert on some of those plays. And DeAndre is a good pass-catching running back, was not utilized in that area of his game, the lowest receptions and receiving total in his career. I think that Kenny Gainwell's there. There's a guy named Lou Nichols who the Eagles really like, and they're going to get a long look at in the summer. Now, that could change depending on who they add there. But I just don't know how his skill set, DeAndre's, would really play into it, given the Eagles' needs there. And his shortcomings were sort of apparent when they really needed it down the stretch. Looked like he wore down a little bit. I thought he was a really good player when needed, but I think he's better suited to be a complementary player, and they're certainly not going to pay a complementary player what he's probably going to yield on the free agent market.
All right, Andrew DiCecco, Football at 4 from InsideTheBirds.com. Tight end has been another area where a lot of guys have been hitting the open market here. What is your thoughts on what we would like to see from the Eagles at the tight end? We did see Zach Ertz signed with Washington. Not that he was a guy that, you're saying, why did they go after him? 1 year, $5 million. But have any of the names that have become free agents recently, Logan Thomas is one, there's Disley in Seattle, a couple of interesting names. Any of the free tight ends stand out?
Nah, not really, but the Eagles certainly do need to address that position. Look, whether folks like it or not, the team does like Jack Stoll. Now, he is a restricted free agent, and they'll have to work something out with him to keep him. But he's someone that, if they're willing to work something out, he's always going to have a role in this team. He's a decent blocker, but I think he's probably better suited to be a number 3. They need more out of the number 2 tight end spot. I think bringing in a pass-catching tight end will not only free up Dallas Goedert, but it also, can serve as another safety valve for Jalen Hurts over the middle of the field and also help Devontae and AJ on the outside. That, to me, seems like a position that you want to target in the draft. Get another young tight end. Remember, Dallas Goedert's getting a little bit older now. It's easy to forget because, it's just somebody that you feel like hasn't been around that long, but he really was a little bit older when he came into the league in 2018. And that's right around the time where they drafted Zach Ertz. They drafted Zach Ertz's replacement around the same type of age. So that to me would think that maybe in the 3rd round at pick 97, maybe early on day 3, you look at a pass-catching tight end that, I like Eric All from Iowa, who is coming off 2 season-ending injuries, but coming from Iowa with that rich pedigree of tight end production, maybe a 6'5", 255, can really do it all. So you wonder if maybe you can get a value guy there, because if he had been healthy, he wouldn't be available anywhere close, but he's probably going to fall in that early day 3 range. That, to me, would seem like an ideal spot for the Eagles to take a tight end.
All right. You were at the Combine last week and got a chance to kind of get all your thoughts together. Couple guys that really stood out that Eagles fans or NFL fans should keep their ears open for on draft day.
Running back Jalen Wright from Tennessee is an explosive player. I think his stock is way up now, so he may go a little higher than the Eagles are willing to take a running back. But then I also look at wide receiver. There's Roman Wilson from Michigan, who I thought had a really good combine. Ricky Pearsall from Florida. He checks off all the boxes as a plug-and-play day 1 starter in the slot. 6'1", 190, runs well, can be that vertical slot right off the bat. Like him, but he's probably a second-round guy. Jacob Cowing is a smaller guy in the mold of a Tank Dell, explosive, quick-twitch guy, good short area quickness. To me, he helped his cause. He's a third-rounder all day in my mind. Those are some guys that I think really helped there. On the back end, Quinyon Mitchell, defensive back, helped himself. Terrion Arnold really helped himself. So they may go a little higher than the Eagles sit currently at 22. But there are a number of defensive backs, safeties in particular, that I thought really helped themselves. I was really impressed with Tyler Nubin, the safety there. When I spoke to him, high IQ guy. It's probably going to have to get him at 50. Ezra Cooper, the linebacker from Texas A&M, really helped himself. I had him going number 50 in my mock draft. There's some people I talked to that think that might be a little late, that he might be a late first-rounder. We'll have to see. It's still really early. But those are some of the guys that really caught my eye that week.
A little early, but you do have your recent mock draft up over at InsideTheBirds.com. And I think if people were looking at the mock draft and were expecting a defensive player, you seem for the second time now to say offensive line. This is the second mock draft in a row that you've given the Eagles an offensive lineman in the first round.
Yeah, I went with Troy Fautanu from Washington, knowing that, yeah, he doesn't have the prototypical size. He's 6'4", 315, left tackle in college, probably a right tackle in the pro level, but he's a plug-and-play guy at right guard. And when you're looking at it in terms of Cam Jurgens moving into center, I mean, that would make a lot of sense. Now, you don't take a guard that late in the first round, a pure guard, but he's someone that offers a lot of positional versatility, really had a monster combine performance, so his stock is up. That, to me, seems like a position where the Eagles would pounce on if they have the opportunity.
All right, and then you can check out his full 7-round mock draft over at InsideTheBirds.com. But if you wanted them to go defense, he's got you picked up in round number 2. They have 2 second-round picks there. One of them defense. The other one, though, an offensive player. So go check that out over at InsideTheBirds.com. Last one for you. There was some conversation yesterday regarding Hassan Reddick, regarding what it might take to get him. Second-round pick or a third and a fifth package. Any of those sound like that can get the job done?
Yeah, a second-round pick for Hassan. I mean, he's approaching 30, but he's a very impactful pass rusher. And the Eagles, I don't think, are going to be willing to part with him for anything less than that, just given what he's still under contract, but also just what he means to the defense. You don't want to just part ways with someone of that caliber for insignificant draft capital.
All right, we'll keep our eyes on that because starting Monday, things can start moving and shaking. We'll have it all right here on Football at 4 next week on the Sports Bash. Check out Andrew's 7-round Eagles mock draft over at InsideTheBirds.com. All right, buddy, we'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Andrew DiCecco, everybody, from InsideTheBirds.com. Of course, you can follow him on X at Andrew DiCecco and all of his musings on the Combine and the draft. He's got his Combine winners and more over on Twitter at Andrew DiCecco and, of course, at InsideTheBirds.com.